I'm going to bring you guys a different sort of video from what I usually do. So, I did a 3,000 word philosophy essay, and that's pretty much it. I just want to talk about it in a video with you guys, share it. You know I usually do Pokemon content, and if you don't, well, hey, I usually do Pokemon content and gaming and stuff. But at the moment, yeah. So we're going through this 3,000 word philosophy essay. It's not 3,000 words, don't worry. I'm just going to go through it, and if you guys are interested in this sort of stuff, tell me what you think. So, my essay is called I Think Therefore I Am, Pursuit of Real Truth, because it's about Descartes and his first meditation. Yeah. You guys don't care about that information. So, the question that I made up for myself, because we have to make up our own questions, is at the start of meditation 2, Descartes says, I think therefore I am. Explain how Descartes uses his logic and reasoning in relation to meditation 1 to reach this conclusion. Deduce and analyse what real truths are, and and debate if Descartes has reached the only real truth. Is he right? So that's what I'm basically doing. Just I wrote the question after I wrote the answer. So Descartes states, I think therefore I am, because this is like his most famous quote, and anyone that knows anything about philosophy knows that. However, if we are consciously dreaming about ourselves being a Pokemon, are we indeed a Pokemon? So this essay will discuss truths, logic and reasoning in reference to Descartes in order to help develop articulate thoughts about the true knowledge throughout the universe. Descartes declares that he had accepted from youth many false opinions for true. His philosophical meditation is concerned with being free of error and biases. He proposes several steps in order to accomplish this, including to become skeptical and doubt everything, and rebuilding beliefs on firm foundations using logic, reasoning and the senses. I'll attempt to relate all of this and consider his perception of logic and reasoning to reach arguable conclusions. Yeah, this is my first paragraph done. Basically, I'm also reading this just so I can, reread my stuff and see if there's anything wrong with it, because I talk a lot better than I write. Weird, right? So Descartes, 1619, started out with his meditation by first doubting everything around him. He had been deceived before and wanted to search for truth. Not just any truth, but real truth and pure knowledge, which cannot possibly be false. Before he had been deceived in the past, he knew that the foundations for his existing knowledge may have been corrupted by false information. Knowing this, he states, I was convinced to rid myself of all the opinions I had adopted. He searched for a fresh start with only true knowledge. The first problem Descartes meditated on was how truthful knowledge should be defined. So, being a skeptic and doubting the truth in everything around you is definitely a good start in my opinion, and I think this helped Descartes define his thoughts more easily later on, so that could probably use a comma. Yeah, what about right here? Why not? However, if you keep resetting all of your existing knowledge to find truth, you'll never have a solid foundation to start on. So sometimes starting a specific experience point is needed in order to discover deeper key thoughts and ideas, not distinguishable by earlier philosophers. So philosophy is a good example, because even though we could very well accept an answer to a question, for example, that Kant was smarter than Descartes. If you guys do not know, Kant is another philosopher. Kant, same thing, basically. Many of us would rather search out the answer ourselves rather than limit our own creative, intelligent potential. There was a very good example of this that Ingo Farron spoke of, which was if God held out his hand and gave you a choice of either knowledge or the journey, which one would you choose? Many people would choose the journey. I think it was this one, I don't know. And the reason for this, I believe, is that instant knowledge has no real experience, hardships, emotions, or memory factor. The contrast answer being the journey can give you a lifetime of experiences and all those other factors associated with livings like the ones I just stated. This is why I think that it is important not to continually start over, because although you enlarge the experience of the journey, the end goal is to pursue the answer. I would rather live a successful, satisfying life rather than a never-ending, unfulfilling one. However, I could see Descartes saying that we need a base for truth first, before we attempt knowledge-seeking, which is understandable as he doubts his true knowledge sources, which we discussed at the beginning. So, perhaps the reason for which we feel so uncomfortable with our information now is only because of how standardized the foundation set by Descartes and other philosophers have become. I should probably maybe make that a little bit more clearer. which, let's go, individuals feel, no, actually that's about right. That's about right. For which reason we feel so comfortable with our information now? Yeah. No, that's actually pretty straightforward. We are pretty comfortable with our information. Descartes' skepticism leads him to wonder if our senses can lead us astray, and if this is a plausible reason for our beliefs can be doubted. So he says, all that I have, up to this moment, accepted as possessed of the highest truth and certainty, I received either from or through the senses. I observed, however, that these sometimes mislead us, and it is the part of the prudence not to place absolute confidence in that by which we have even once been deceived. So, the voice acting I just did was terrible. I'm sorry about that, guys. But yeah, a long quote that I thought was necessary. Descartes is aware that his knowledge so far is derived from the senses, and that they are our only methods of acquiring knowledge. So I'm just summing that up. He has learnt that the senses can deceive us, and considers that if anything can deceive you once, then it's not wise to trust it in all circumstances. Further defined as not trustworthy as a fact or a perfect truth. So I somewhat disagree with Descartes. I believe that the senses can deceive us from the truth, but only from the truth found through the senses. So I'm going to elaborate on this further and say that if you closed one eye and you tried to catch a ball and you missed it, and you were just like, even though you were 100% sure that you caught that ball, it's just your sight deceiving you in your eyes. And however, the fact is only true because your skin didn't feel the ball, and vice versa. So, yeah, you could feel a ball with your eyes closed and open your eyes and find it's a dull head. So I could be like, this is a book. It's not a book. So it was our sense of touch that made it think it was a book, but if we use our eyes, it's not. So that's how the senses can sort of deceive each other. Let's see. So in this situation, up here, your sense of touch was deceiving you in contrast to your eyes, which is what we just talked about. Our senses try to work together to make sense of this, and the world around us. Make sense of the world around us, not this, whatever. It may not be that they lie, but give false information in contrast to another sense. So I agree with Descartes. However, I would say that our senses hold some truth to them, or at least enough to be content with. So, even though our senses can lie to us, even though we can think this is a book, without our eyesight and being able to feel it, we wouldn't know what it is anyway. So we have to make the most sense out of it. Occasionally our sensory information can deceive us through external influences which affect the way in which our internal senses affect our perception. For example, sickness or drugs, such as hallucinations due to fever, mental illness, and painkillers like morphine, can all have an impact on your bodily senses, and this is because the information comes through our senses, which then gets processed in our brains, and occasionally our brains don't process the information properly. Yes. Our senses can be correct, but when the information travels from our sensory organs to our brains can make a mistake. This is very well documented. Early philosophers, not having the scientific knowledge about how brains process information that modern day scientists now have, let's put a comma there because we can, would not know about this common knowledge, hindering their sensory theories. I'm sorry, I skewed so many words there. But yeah, basically just saying that people in the old days, they didn't know how to, they didn't understand a lot of brain processes and stuff like we do now. And now we do. So he didn't have access to that information, and that's okay. At first glance, our information of true knowledge links to everything that we perceive through the senses, but what would happen if you took them all away? If you were blind, deaf, and unable to feel anything within your body, everything would be eternal darkness, there would be silence, and there would be no proof that you were even alive. Based on the five senses, many people would wonder where taste and smell come into this. Because, you know, most of you guys are just like, oh yeah, we have five senses, and I've only said three. So, I believe that our tongues and noses cannot physically interact with external properties. So, cannot interact physically with external properties. Yeah, such as smells. Then they would also cease along with touch. So basically what I'm saying there is, for example, taste. You can't taste anything unless you actually, you know, have your tongue make contact with something, and then it's all the nerves in your body that make that feeling happen. So it's basically the same as touch, but it does something different though. It doesn't make you feel, it makes you taste, which is, yeah, that's the thing. So at first glance, our experience of true knowledge, oh, I already did that. Again, given the impression that a person within that state will not have any sensory experience, limiting any signs of being alive. So basically, without all your senses, you pretty much feel dead, I would assume, and you just be in a blank space of loneliness. You wouldn't know what's going on. Descartes says that if the body, figure, extension, motion, and place are merely fictions of the mind, what is there then that can be esteemed true? So he doesn't know what would be true after all those things. And if that's the case, should we simply give up believing that we can know anything at all? Our senses may lie, but there is no other way to perceive the truth. Like I just said. We can find truth in statements such as maths problems though. For example, 2 plus 2 equals 4, because no matter what you do, that's always going to be a truth. You can change the symbols around and then relations, so you can make it like, you know, A plus A equals B. I don't know. And that'll be true, because it's not so much what the numbers mean, what the numbers state, it's what they mean. So, you know, this, and then, I don't know, this, right, together, there's two of them. So, we would never be able to figure out such logic, however, without the knowledge gained through sensory experience. So, I wouldn't know that this and this equals this without actually having an experience of the world and knowing all this stuff through the senses. So, yeah, that's pretty much it though. Like, we wouldn't know the language that we needed, and you guys wouldn't be able to understand me right now, for example. And towards the end of Descartes' meditation, after doubting sensory information, Descartes is led to believe that the only true knowledge you can gain is through the application of pure reason alone. If you guys noticed, I did rhyme there. He believes that we are cut off from our senses, which can mislead us. It would be best to trust our thoughts and logical thinking in order to seek truths, which is what he believes. I think that both senses and reason are important for understanding the world around us. However, I would put more emphasis on empirical evidence derived from the senses, as it is unwise to doubt our only way to perceive the world. Empirical evidence is basically just experience. So you know what, I might even just put that up there. It's a little bit more than that, but that's the simple version to say it. The simplest way to combat sensory deceit is to consider and be aware that our senses can mislead us. If we do not have the senses, the only thing that we have left to think and have subconscious thought, the only thing that we have left is to think and have subconscious thought. There we go. I've read that wrong. In this situation, Descartes, without a doubt, would still believe that he thinks, therefore he is, because that is going back to his quote, I think, therefore I am. My consideration of Descartes would be, if we are able to think in that senseless state, without any senses, being cut off from everything and feeling dead, then without having ever experienced anything in our lives, how do we have subconscious and conscious thought? Like, if you're in that state where you're dead, do you think about anything? Sigmund Freud and other philosophers and psychologists state that our dreams are our subconscious thoughts. My way of thinking is quite Freudian to an extent, and I believe that this is the case. I also believe that our subconscious thoughts are based off real life experiences. So, if you don't have any experiences, and our thoughts are based off experiences, and we're dead, basically, and we've never experienced these things, do you even think about anything at all? Is the point that I'm trying to get across. What was I up to? Yeah, so do we even think, do we even dream? And would we be able to distinguish between sleep and waking cycles? So, if you don't have any experience, and you don't know what's going on, when you're asleep and when you're awake, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. You wouldn't open your eyes, you wouldn't... I mean, you might have a different heart rate, but you wouldn't be able to feel it because you don't have any senses of feeling. So you wouldn't have any idea if you're awake or asleep, and your thoughts would get crossed over if you even have any. So, I do not believe we do. Every time I try to imagine it, I cannot describe it, and nothing comes to mind because there is nothing there. Every time we are thinking to ourselves, we always talk in our own language to ourselves, or use imagery to describe something, my bad. So whenever we're thinking to ourselves, we're always using language, like how I'm talking now. Or we'd think about pictures, and images, and videos, and things like that. It is very rarely lucid, which means clear. So it's very cloudy most of the time. I think that if we were put in that state again, it would be just like birth. So before we were born, we couldn't really, we can't even remember anything from that time, and we have no knowledge of it because I feel like we didn't actually experience anything. We would have no memories and nothing to compare to, except unlike childbirth, where we learn to develop our senses in conjunction with memory, we would never learn, and we would be devoid of all knowledge except possibly I am me. We would never know what we are, or if we were even a thing, but possibly we would just know as individuals that I am me. So even though we're there, we have no idea what's going on whatsoever, you know that you're something. Because you're something. I feel as though Descartes would be happy enough with that answer, especially if he was cultured in such a way that he had been. That we had been. So if he was brought up the same way as us, by cultured I mean to have been raised within a similar society, community and upbringing as modern people such as ourselves. This does not mean that I am undermining Descartes' work, but that he did not have access to more modern age knowledge nor the support to help develop his learning, such as present like-minded individuals. And we're going to put here i.e. recent role models, peers and teachers. I spelled i.e. wrong. There we go. Descartes has given us the wisdom and experience needed to create a solid foundation. Ignore that phone call, please. If you can hear it. I don't know. It's way out there. So he's given us a solid foundation. Only time will tell if it will become a foundation that grows and reaches new heights, or helps proceed to build a better foundation which incorporates the old detail as a learning model. I believe that his starting base will both proceed to new heights and will be newly adapt for newer theories and stems like a tree that branches out, rather than a skyscraper which grows or gets demolished. So I'm basically saying that the way that he, I guess, finds new truth and knowledge sources, like real ones, I think that his theories are either going to keep growing and they're going to get higher and higher and everyone's going to accept them as the truth, or that people are just going to ignore them. But I believe that his starting base will both proceed to new heights and will be newly adapted for newer theories and stems like a tree that branches out. Yeah, that's what I just said. So instead of being knocked off or just growing, it's going to branch out like a tree. So Descartes' theory will be at the bottom and everyone else will sort of develop their own theories off that. Yeah, Descartes did a good thing. I liked his ideas. They were very logical for a time-worn philosopher and stay very true to this day. So that's just a simple statement. I put some ideas into perspective and challenged his main argument that he was most known for. I think therefore I am. After putting it into the most extreme of conditions, his phrase stayed true, and the extreme conditions we're talking about are the lack of senses and experience. So I should probably put that up there too. Lack of experience. There we go. Even though you may know nothing about anything, One who knows nothing can still call themselves something. So that's an important quote that I'd be fine if you guys want to quote me on that one. That's amazing. Just think about it. Even though you may know nothing about anything, one who knows nothing can still call themselves something. In our regular sensory experience state, our minds never stop working. Even whilst asleep, our brains are continually reflecting and thinking about what they have observed recently throughout our bodily sensations. So we're always thinking. It doesn't matter if we're asleep or awake. Our brains never stop. According to the Meditations, Descartes understands that dreams are derived from real-life events and objects, and that even if you dream of something new, there's no more than a This is no more than a calibrate. I have to read my own words here. This is no more than a collaboration of the inspiration found in our world. #bars. If you don't know what #bars means, it just means you rhymed. For example, if you dreamed about owning rocket boots, the object in the world. Yeah. Let me start this again. I'm gotta clear. Okay. So, if you ever dreamed about owning rocket boots in a dream, the object in the dream would just be a cognitive reconstruction of real-world properties and predefined representations of items such as rocket propulsion and shoes. So it's just a combination of two things that already exist in the real world. Like, I could get this cloth and this tissue and put them together and call it a rag. Or something like that. Something silly. That's a silly example, but you might be able to understand what I mean there. So rocket boots is just rockets and boots together. Yeah. So the concept of Occam's razor states that the simplest answer is the correct one. We can deduce that it is safer to assume that we are merely sleeping in our beds, reflecting on aspects of our lives. So the whole Occam's razor thing is just about keeping it simple. It helps our argument also state that without senses we cannot continue receiving information through those senses. I feel as though Descartes would not accept Occam's razor as a means to obtain real truths, however, as Descartes typically starts out from a position of doubt, and these two idealists are completely contrasting of one another. So Occam's razor again, it basically says keep it simple. Anything that's not simple isn't worth your time. So simply put, Occam accepts everything as it is, like I just said, and Descartes doubts everything as it is because he's a skeptic. So Descartes doubts existence so much that he begins his evil demon argument, contemplating the possibility that there is an evil demon, or modern day mad scientist, or evil genius if you guys want to put it as that, who has all of our minds in metaphorical jars and has control over everything that we experience. This point is to show that the body can be deceived. So the idea of this is similar to that of the movie The Matrix. You guys will know The Matrix, I'm sure, or just have even heard about it, which runs through there's a bit of a spoiler here, so if you haven't seen The Matrix, don't read this next bit. Which runs through the idea that human brains are controlled by alien computers and that their environment is controlled through a digital universe. So only if you haven't seen the first Matrix, that's all. This is a good modern example of this theory. I believe that Descartes had a good point with his evil demon argument, and I accept the possibility that this could be a reality. Descartes makes the argument because if he does not have a body, then he is being told lies through the senses, deceiving him from true knowledge. However, I debate that in an example such as an individual's online presence in the Matrix, people can still obtain truth from that. So even if you're in the Matrix, in that sort of world where everything's, fake. Actually, I'll talk about it in a sec, hang on. Even though an online world can be considered fake, I still consider the time spent there and any sort of social interaction a real conceptual experience, so truth. You may not be able to say that it was even a real person you were talking to, but the truth is that the experience was still there. The truth of the matter is that if an evil demon were controlling your thoughts, emotions, and predicting your actions for you, the most important thing and most realistic truth there is is that you went through that experience yourself. I believe at that point, the motto changes from I think, therefore I am, which is Descartes' point of view, to I experience, therefore I am me. So basically, just to reiterate on that, I'm just saying that even if you were like in a virtual world, like say for example, I don't know, Sword Art Online or something like that, the things that you experience there, those moments that you have, they're real truths. Like they're the real deal. It might be in a fake world, but it's still real information to you. It's still a real moment in your life. One might argue that if you had amnesia, the phase wouldn't be true, because you couldn't remember your experience. I experienced, therefore I am me. True though, memories of events fade over time. I don't have any evidence at all, but I believe that truths will stay forever in a timeline regardless, because we cannot get any evidence about that one. A timeline, you know, we just accept it as a fact, generally speaking. And just because you don't remember doesn't mean that you are not currently experiencing. The same goes for the evil demon. Just because everything is predetermined doesn't mean that you're not enjoying the ride and experiencing life's journey. Predetermined just means that... you guys probably know what predetermined means. So basically everything is out of your control, like everything around you is just set up by this evil demon. I think that truth is subjective, and in a way always will be. This is the conclusion, guys. There's no real difference of truth between worlds, whether physical, virtual, or imaginary, just different ways to experience life. Descartes says that sensory truths can deceive you, and that reason is the real truth. I agree that senses can deceive and that there is truth within reason. However, I find that reason does not exist without experience, making experience more important as it is the only way that we can perceive the world around us. Pure truth for me is something that cannot possibly be false, as I said at the start. So, as stated in the, I think it was the second paragraph. And let's actually type out the word second. This is the same definition for Descartes. However, he considered external and events outside of his control, evil demon, as false. Let's go external / events, that makes more sense, I guess. Whereas I considered events and moments in time as real truths. Although memories eventually fade with time, truths are a phenomenon that lasts forever throughout time. In fact, anything experienced throughout time is a pure fact, in my opinion. No, it is. It is a real fact. Even though we forget, we create new memories and we strive to live our lives to the fullest and enjoy the journey. Then, when we reach the end, we will know that we got there and we can find some comfort in that truth. This is the goal of all humans, to find and live within moments of space and time, understanding that currently they have found the truth. That you guys out there, you're yourself, and that defines who you are, and that every moment, like even right now, you guys are experiencing and you're living life. So that's why I state such a broad statement, that it's the goal of all humans, because you guys, you know, the goal of you guys is just to live, right? You can have, you know, mind goals, you can have work goals, you can have all sorts of goals that you want to aspire for, but the goal that you're forever completing, I guess, is just living life. And that's it, guys. So that's my essay. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm sorry if it was so long, but I thought I'd get my point out there. If you do have any questions, please comment below the video, because that'd be really awesome. And I'll like surely take on any questions you have. If I can't, I'll just say probably something like, "Oh yeah, it's a good point. It's quite a good point." But yeah. So without further ado, guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you in some other videos, I guess. If you want more philosophy videos, tell me, because I write essays for uni. Yeah, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.